podcast is meant for a mature adult audience. Listener discretion is advised.
You're listening to On a Quest. I'm Jill Urchek, your host. Obviously, I'm doing this show because I like to talk about paranormal things, metaphysical, spiritual, ghosts, angels, all this good stuff that a lot of people don't talk about on a daily basis, which is why I have the podcast. I've done a lot of ghost hunting things already, and I wanted to take a turn. I'm fascinated by outer space. Many people that know me would attest to why I would be. And I have a friend who's laughing right now that saw a UFO. And Stephen, can I say your last name? Or are you
Sure,
not?
go ahead.
Okay. Stephen Haas, a good friend of mine. We worked together for years. A very, very nice man, trustworthy and loyal, and would not be lying about this. I know there's a lot of skeptics out there, and I completely understand why there would be. Completely. Because if anything, Stephen, I am a skeptic before I'm a believer, but because I believe so passionately, I'd rather disprove first, if that makes any sense, because I do believe there's so much out there that we don't know. Stephen, before I get into a couple of quick facts about UFOs, up until 1947, they were calling them flying saucers, and then people were saying that was a little bit too hokey, that It's more than just a flying saucer. That's when they coined the term UFO. Over the past 40 years, there are 6 UFO sightings reported daily since 1940. Wow. Or I'm sorry, over the last 40 years, 6 daily. And out of those, 5 to 20% are unexplained. They debunk many of them, but I think that's 20% is a pretty big number to be unexplained, don't you think?
It's pretty amazing. I was amazed at the 6 per day.
6 per day, yeah. I'm sure a lot of people were drinking during those sightings, but I do believe that many of those were legit. So, Stephen, I've always been fascinated by, I look out in the stars, and me, as a person, I believe in God. You know this. We've talked. Stephen and I are both Catholic, and I believe that there's so much out there we don't know. God is so vast and wonderful, and has created the universe. So why wouldn't there be life on other planets, which is a different story, but just the fact that people on Earth have seen them. So something happened to you. Tell us all about it.
Well, my story is a little unusual because typically we think of UFOs as being seen at night and in the country or, very rural areas. I happen to have been at Lake Street Beach in the Miller Beach neighborhood or section of Gary, Indiana, which is a very urban setting. And my sighting occurred at 1:30 in the afternoon, broad daylight. This occurred on, I believe it was Saturday, September 25th, 1999.
Wow.
It's definitely something I've never forgotten. It was the most unusual and surreal thing to ever happen to me. And I have to say that I always had a little bit of skepticism before regarding UFOs because, it was always at night. It was always,
and out in the,
flying saucer, and, then Jeb and I went and had a bunch of beers, and, stuff like that. So, I mean, it was like, okay, this is something that was really, really unexplainable. I've never witnessed anything like this before. I've never witnessed anything since like it, and I've talked with many people about it, from National Weather Service. Could this have been a weather balloon of some sort? Trying to explain it, and I've told many people about it. I do have a certain amount of credibility with what I do for a living.
Go ahead, you could tell everybody.
But,
yeah.
That aside, I mean, it's just that this is a very unusual circumstance. I was at the beach. I enjoy going to the beach quite a bit. I have all my life, which is why I decided to, several years ago, buy a home in the Miller Beach section of Gary. It's beautiful here.
Okay.
And I was all by myself, unfortunately. It was one of those days when I had time off. It was late in the season, September 25th. The season's essentially over by then.
Right.
And it was just a beautiful, clear sky, no clouds, no wind.
Okay.
Beautiful day.
Beautiful, clear, sunny day.
Yes.
Okay. I'm trying to picture
it.
it.
Not a single cloud in the sky, and no wind either. There's no breeze or anything. It's very still. And I set up my camp in the dunes, which would be the first dune away from the water edge or the beach part, So I have a little privacy when I lay back there, And I was getting ready to make myself a cocktail.
Okay.
I hadn't had one yet. I was completely
He hasn't had one yet.
sober.
Right. I'm joking.
Isn't it?
I like how you phrase it. I haven't had one yet.
Yeah. It's coming. It was coming. I had it packed.
I bet it would be.
And then I went down to my bag to start to make vodka and 7-Up, which is my drink of preference.
Okay.
And I don't drink and drive, so I'd come from, I believe I was living in Berwyn, Illinois at the time, and I drove all the way out to Gary. I'm from Northwest Indiana originally, and I've always loved this beach because it's just so pretty here. So I set up my campsite, and something, I don't know what, made me turn around. I just I better turn around.
Okay.
And I turned around. The dune behind me, which is maybe about 20 feet tall, grass-covered, not sand dune, grass-covered sand dune. I guess it is a sand dune, but the dune grass had already taken over. 3 feet above the top of this dune, maybe about 20 feet away from me, I saw this 3-foot diameter orb. I thought at first, that's a shopping bag of some sort, but how could it be hovering above a sand dune? And at first it was kind of an opaque color. And then it seemed to sense that I was seeing it or something, and it started to turn to an orange glow. And I was like, that ain't no shopping bag.
No.
And there was no wind to support this shopping bag.
Right.
So I thought, I don't know what the hell this is. I ran and grabbed my binoculars. I always carry a pair of binoculars with me. And I wanted to get a picture of it. I didn't have time to even get a picture of it, but I grabbed my binoculars and looked at it, and it was just amazing. I don't know what it was. It had its own internal mechanism of power or something. I didn't see any mechanics. It was almost like a huge jellyfish floating in the air. That's about the best way I could describe it if you know what jellyfish is.
Yeah, it's opaque, sure.
But this was definitely round orb. It had a definite shape to it. And it hovered about 3 feet above the sand dune. And I said, this cannot be happening. I said, this is something very unusual. And as I started to walk toward it, I made maybe about 5 steps, and I had the binoculars on it the whole time. It turned even brighter orange, and then all of a sudden, it just shot straight up in the sky like it was a rocket.
Oh, my God.
I've never seen anything go, and I followed it with my binoculars, and I mean, it was like 1,000 feet in the air in a matter of seconds. And it was the most unusual, ungodly thing I'd ever seen in my life.
Okay.
And
go ahead.
I don't know how else to describe it. I mean, I didn't see little green people or anything like that, but this couldn't have been any kind of mankind-made object. I mean, there was no mechanisms for it to go that fast like a rocket. It'd have to have boosters and fire and all
you would see the smoke stream, right?
None of this. It was just a clear or opaque. I guess it'd be translucent at this point. And it just shot straight up in the air.
Oh my God!
And I was just in awe of it. And of course, people that came to the beach later that day, I told them my story. They're like, "Oh yeah, what did you have to smoke? You said you weren't drinking anything." I was like, "No, nothing. I swear."
Not yet. I told you, not yet.
God is my witness, and I don't know if people believe me or not, but it was just something that I couldn't have even made up. It was just so unusual and so bizarre, and I've never seen of anything like this again at this same beach, and I still go to the same beach. And I did speak with someone maybe about 7 or 8 years ago, and they spoke of seeing the same, or that their mother was on a group trip to White Sox, to U.S. Cellular Field.
Okay.
They were coming back on the Indiana Toll Road around the Chicago Skyway Bridge, the big bridge.
Yeah.
And they claimed on the bus around this same time of day, or they were even going to or coming from, I can't remember what that part of the story was, but they saw these odd orange balls in the sky, for lack of better description. So I guess I did receive some collaboration of this incident. It was third party, but someone else saw this too in the same area, along the south end of Lake Michigan. So It must have been some sort of probe of some sort or something. It was unmanned or
Yeah, I know what you mean.
I guess. I don't think there would be any men on it, but it was small. It wasn't a big huge thing in the sky. No whirling things. No probing or anything like that. So it was just a very unusual circumstance.
So, but wait, okay,
but
Stephen.
It turned me into a believer.
Well, yeah.
I'll have to say that. After that happened, I believed.
Because I have questions for you. I love this story,
Sure.
by the way.
Thank you.
It's so cool because if you were making it up, you can probably elaborate and say, like you saw little ETs, making breakfast or something. I don't know, whatever ET people do. Okay. How far away from the dune? You said it was the dune behind you. Was it in feet? Was it like yards or was it?
It was feet.
It was feet. You were that close. How many feet would you?
That's what freaked me out.
Because you were that
close. It happened so close to me. It came up behind me, and that's what I thought. I honestly felt a little concerned for my safety at that point.
Okay.
Because I just didn't. Even though it was very small, it was just so weird. It was so unexplainable, and it defied logic that I became a little frightened of it. And I still even went closer to it, though. Whatever fear I had or trepidation I had, I was just so curious and so amazed by it that I thought, I've got to see what this is. This is just something so odd. But I remember at very first thinking, where did this thing come from? And how did it know that I was here? It must have seen me before I saw it.
Well, yeah, because you had a feeling.
Creeped me out a little bit, but that thought came to me more after than during. I was just in such shock at the time of the event that I had enough wherewithal to grab my binoculars, but I had a disposable camera with me too, and I wished I had grabbed that, but I was just so
you wanted to see it,
of this, I just completely forgot about the camera.
Okay, so you were. Go ahead.
Might have been a little more helpful or believable if I did have it, but. It was just so unusual that I didn't even know. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. It just defied logic. And like I said, at first I just thought it was like, well, it must be like a plastic shopping bag that somehow, I don't know, became airborne and flew over a dune, which I've never seen happen before. But, it was just such a bizarre, unusual thing that's how come I reached down right away and got my binoculars, because I thought, I can't believe what I'm seeing. And then I started walking maybe about 5 steps closer to it, and that's when it did the color change thing into a really intense orange color, and then it shot up straight in the sky, and there was no wind, no clouds, and I followed it with my binoculars, and I just couldn't believe how fast it was going. It was like beyond a rocket. It was just so
like
fast.
At the speed of light. Gone.
It went up into the great blue yonder. And I lost sight of it. But it seemed like I was following it for a long time, and I could see the glow for a long time.
You could see the glow, and it stayed orange, and that's what that person saw. Also, was an orange glow. So you were literally feet away from this thing, which is what's so amazing. And it was small. And your estimate, how small? Again, I know it's just a guess. Would you say? And it was round, correct?
Correct.
It was round. Okay.
3 feet in diameter. Do you remember the kids' toys where they would, I can't even remember what they're called. You'd bounce on them, they'd blow up, they were blown up with air, and they had a handle on the top, and you could, bounce on them.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah. Oh, what is that thing called?
From the 70s or something.
From the 70s, yeah. Okay, so about 3
about that
feet.
size, but it was like opaque to translucent, too, which made it even more bizarre, is that I could see through it almost.
And when you could see through it, Stephen, did you see anything when you were able to see through it? Were there was there anything inside of it?
No mechanisms,
nothing.
No beings, nothing.
And
nothing.
then
it was just clear.
And when the light changed orange, did it hurt your eyes?
No, it wasn't that bright. It was a bright, sunny day out, and I'm pretty sure I had sunglasses on.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like blinding orange light. It was definitely like a flame going from a light yellow to an intense orange, which I also found to be, very unusual. Because it started out as I thought it was a clear bag at first.
Well, sure. But that's a normal, logical thing to think. And it's funny that you say that, because yesterday my husband was barbecuing and one of the jewel bags flew off into the sky. and it looked like a kite. It was kind of cool to see. But wind will move it. It will only hover. I'm not, a scientist here.
Get over is that it was hovering.
It was hovering.
At the same 3 foot, maybe not even 3 feet above that sand dune. I mean, like 2 to 3 feet, or it was pretty close to the sand grass, and that's maybe about a foot. So it wasn't far from the top of the dune.
No, and 3 feet in diameter is pretty.
I mean, like maybe about 20. It was like, I'd say about 5 feet behind me and 20 feet to the left of me.
5 feet
not
behind
even 20,
you,
it's
20
more like
feet.
15.
Okay.
It was very, very close, though.
Was it quiet, Stephen? Were there any noises, a humming?
Very quiet. No noises whatsoever. No noises at all.
Describe the feeling
humming,
you had.
No jet propulsion, no nothing.
Describe the feeling you had when you felt like something made you turn around. Is it just that feeling when someone's behind you, or did something propel you?
I can't even explain it.
Okay.
I don't know why. Just something told me to turn around, or something told me that maybe I caught it out of my peripheral vision that something was happening. But I think I was facing toward the lake when I was occupied trying to get my cocktail together.
Right.
I've got my priorities.
Well, yeah, cocktails first, UFO second.
Yeah, I was at the beach. I was ready for a day of relaxation, and I was thirsty because I usually track down about a mile west of the parking lot. A very secluded area, and it's just a very unusual thing to see something like that, especially broad daylight. I never would have expected it to be something, paranormal or, some type of UFO thing or something like that. But I can't explain it any other way, and I've definitely thought it through and asked many people through the years describing the same story that I've described to you just now. What could this have possibly have been? A weather balloon, or some kind of NASA thing, or I'm not entirely sure NASA even does work out of Miller Beach, but and in such a densely populated area. That's the other odd thing, is that just I wouldn't have expected it here. Maybe if I went down to Turkey Run or someplace in central Indiana where it's a little more isolated, but here in Gary, it's like this is an urban area. It's not way out in the sticks.
Yeah, and that because that's what they usually show are the like you did a great accent there. For people that it's always out in the country and it's always at night, it appears to be. But I've seen a few UFO specials where they show them in like UFO in New York City. They don't highlight those as much as they do. I think it's for TV effects to make it look scarier at night, have it out in the open like that. But I don't think UFOs have any prejudice against where or when they show up. So it's interesting to me that it showed up. And how many people, was anybody around you? No. So you had nobody, like you said, not at that moment to, I don't know, Stephen. I've known you a long time and you're a logical man.
Thank you.
Any logical person before your cocktails? Any logical person?
Before the cocktails, yeah.
And
that's what got me. It's like I wasn't even drinking.
If you said you were on your fifth margarita, I'd say, I believe you, Stephen, but we need to chat about this. I don't even think
I would have had the wherewithal to grab my binoculars if I was on my fifth margarita.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I mean, it was too weird. It's definitely the quiet season. After Labor Day, beach season is pretty much over, and this was one of those rare late September days, and it was probably the last day. I can't imagine that I went much beyond that point. So, I mean, it was definitely winding down the season, and again, no one else on the beach at all. A buddy did show up about 3 or 4 hours later, and I told him about it, and I was all like, and he was like, yeah, smoke another one, He was just, he knows me and everything, and a good friend of mine, but he was very skeptical, which I don't blame him. I mean, but I wouldn't have made something like that up. I mean, it's just not.
Yeah, why would you?
Me,
Why would you? I mean, most people are going to make fun of people that say they saw UFOs. I wouldn't, but most people do, and everyone says until you have seen it. This is, I mean, I've read a lot of. I shouldn't say I've read a lot of books. I read a few books about UFOs, but I always watch the specials, and you see these normal working everyday people such as yourself, just going about their lives, and they say on there, why would I make this up? What am I going to gain from telling you this? What's, unless you want, well, some people crave attention. That's true. And you can tell those people, and those are the people that have these long stories with full on, I'm not saying all of them, but when people make things up, you could tell by the way they talk sometimes, and they want the attention.
Too much detail.
Too much detail. Yeah. And there's, so do you believe, obviously, if that was a UFO, and I believe you that it was, okay, UFOs, unidentified flying object, that's what it was. So it was a UFO. Where it came from, who knows? Yes. But the scientists say to this day, they do not have anything that propels you that quickly and with no noise that quickly into the sky.
That's what made me think that it was paranormal or supernatural, or I don't know what you'd call it. It was definitely not a man-made device. And it was not a man-made situation because there was no mechanism that I could, and I got a good look at it. Good, clear look. It was perfectly clear skies. There were no clouds. It was 1:30 in the afternoon. I had my binoculars on top of it. If I didn't have my binoculars, I might have been a little more skeptical myself. But considering that I got one heck of a good look at it with my binoculars, and I saw absolutely no mechanics.
That's so weird.
Nothing.
There was nothing inside of it. Nothing that you could see.
Nothing.
I
could see through it, actually, but that was it.
So what was
it? It was really weird.
It was just like a see-through
really
jelly?
Weird.
Like
there's no gust of wind that would have taken it up at that speed, when it's perfectly still. And it's unusual for the air to be perfectly still at the beach because of the water contrast with the temperature. The temperature contrast, with the water and the air. Usually you have a breeze, a lake breeze, which is what makes Miller Beach so nice, is that we're at the south end, and we always get a nice northerly breeze throughout the summer. And, it keeps us a little warmer in the winter and cooler in the summer. And that's why it's such a nice place to be.
An odd thing. Well, it's kind of
climate, a little more temperate than even the rest of Chicagoland.
It kind of reminds me of the day the Titanic sank. People all described what a beautiful, still, clear night it was. And you're on the water. There were no waves. There was no motion in the ocean, if you will. And everyone said what a clear, still... I don't even know where I got that from. But it seems to happen on those very still nights. And you know what went through my head when you said the date? It was September, 25th of 99. Did you, with all the theories of all the people that thought we were all going to perish in the year 2000, did you ever have that, like, wow, this is nearing the end of 1999. Maybe these... this might have something to do with... No?
That didn't really cross my mind. The reason, I guess, why I remember the date so clearly is my brother's birthday is September 24th.
Okay.
And, the 25th was the day after his birthday, and it always, I always had that milestone in my life. I mean, I remember when my brother was born, so obviously I'm always going to remember September 24th. It was a big day in my life.
Yeah.
My only brother,
the doctor,
only sibling for that matter, was born then.
Right.
And I was 6 years old at the time. I remember that vividly. So, I mean, that date always will be special to me. And I mean, as my brother is,
Well, Stephen.
Nice
go ahead.
Guy.
No, I'm just
my brother.
No, your brother's a doctor. I remember that, correct?
Yes.
Okay. See, I have a very good memory. I think
you do have a good memory.
I do have a good memory. I think that something like, at what point, I would be frightened too, but I would be the same as you. I admit I'm all talk, very little action. But in that moment, if I had binoculars, I would be looking too. When you walk towards it, you said at one point you were a little freaked out, like they were watching you, and that's when the lights turned orange. So it was.
That's what
feeling.
I felt. They somehow got the idea that I was watching them.
Okay.
And that's when it turned to the very bright and darker orange, as if something was revving up, for lack of better explanation, and for what actually happened afterward when it just shot straight up in the air. And I that was when it wasn't such a bright orange until I thought, oh, they've seen me now. And that's when I got a little scared, and then I saw it just turn. And then when it started turning the brighter orange, I thought, "Oh no, what's going to happen now?"
Yeah, they're going to take me.
Then, yeah, it was like it was going to get bigger, or they're going to call in more ships, or who knows what. And
Wow.
I'm rather fond of my life here on Earth, and I'd rather not leave.
No, you are
Who
an
knows?
earthling.
Maybe they could have taken me to paradise. I don't know, but I don't really want to find that out.
Well, people that have reported being abducted, and I know that's a step away, and again, many of them could be a little cuckoo, but many of them really feel, I guess my point is, who are we to say what's real and what's not? Your experience
and their stories have always collaborated with
they
each
have
other.
always
It's always been the same kind of thing.
Yeah, they've always collaborated, and it's just creepy. You see these people, and they've got little markings on them. They go to the doctor. Supposedly, they've had something, a chip or something, put in there. And I remember having a dream when I was a kid. It seems so real. I was watching an episode one day, these people saying they were all working on them, like all these beings were working on them, and you couldn't talk or you couldn't scream, and they just saw their faces all like on an operating table. I remember having a dream a couple times when I was a kid that I was pulled through the living room wall, and there were all these people. It was a dream, but it just creeped me out. I'm not saying I was abducted, people that are listening, okay? I'm not saying that at all. But after hearing these people's stories, Stephen, I remember that thought hasn't been in my mind since I was probably about 8. And they said they were all working on them at lightning speed. And I just remember being pulled through my living room wall and having all these people work on me. And I remember how terrifying it was. It was only a dream. But at one moment in time, I'm like, oh my God, that would explain my personality. I've been abducted. Yeah. But you hear these people, like you said, they all collaborate. Have you ever looked up other sightings? Have you typed in the year and the day in Indiana? Is there a place you can go to?
Google wasn't around back then.
Yeah, you should do that, Stephen.
It was there, but it was still in a relative infancy.
Right, you should do
now
that.
It would be interesting to do something like that, and I never even really thought about it now until you mentioned it.
Well, I'm going to if you don't.
That would be a good idea. Yeah, if you want to go ahead.
I will. I will do it, and I'll let you know if there were others. So you could not have been. Well, maybe you could have been if it only chose to go there. But what kills me is the fact that if it didn't see you right away and then it noticed you, they were looking at something. I don't know. I find the whole thing mind-boggling. I find it very cool. I think that's cool that happened, and I think that you saying it so freely, you know what you saw.
Yeah.
You know what you saw, and that's all that matters.
Because it's the truth. It's what happened. I couldn't make something like that up.
No.
Really.
Okay.
It wasn't spectacular and overboard and, oh, yes, they abducted me and I got the anal probe and all that stuff. No. None of that stuff happened. It was totally unmanned or like it probably was a probe itself or something. I don't even know how to speculate on this. It was some kind of investigative unit or something that was collecting either information or I don't know why. The ironic thing is that there was a group from some kind of religious sect or something, and they were either from Taiwan or from mainland China. They flew out to Gary, Indiana on, was it New Year's Eve of 1997, and they thought that my beach, Lake Street Beach, and there were news stories on this in the Chicago Tribune. They thought the world was going to come to an end and some kind of alien spaceship was going to pick them up and take them off, similar to Heaven's Gate, but not nearly as macabre.
Okay.
Where they were going to be transported to the future, and they all flew out here and came out to here in the middle of winter.
Wow.
And at that time, I was working at CLTV News, and they all knew that I went to this beach, all the people in the newsroom. They're like, hey, Haas, you're going to go see your Chinese buddies and get abducted to the... And this was before this happened, a couple of years before this, my sighting happened. So, it was like, I'm not the only one who thought that there were going to be some kind of paranormal activity. That thought also entered my mind, which I think the fear factor came in then. It was like, I don't want to be abducted. I like my life here on this planet.
You want to look from a distance.
I'm happy with everyone here.
Yeah. I'm good on Earth. I'm good on Earth.
Selfish, but I'll say I'm selfish. I don't want to go off into outer space.
No.
I'm glad I didn't.
Wow. Well, I am going to look up that information now that it's more accessible and see if there were any, because you have to disprove everything. But the point is,
Right.
you saw something, and the thing that makes me say, is, and they will, not to quote, what's that band? Things that make you go,
Yes, I know.
Not Technotronic. What is the name of it? It's going to drive me crazy now. Anyway, from the 90s.
Yes, I remember it.
Is,
I remember Things That Make You Go Home. Very catchy.
Yeah,
Big club song.
It is. It was a great song.
Back when I, had a life and went to clubs and stuff. So.
CNC Music Factory, yes. I was right there with you. CNC Music Factory, yeah.
CNC
Music Factory with
Then they had to add in something Washington, and then they had to, the legalese of it got very complicated because of MTV and their success.
That's too bad, because that was a great band.
Was it Dinah Washington? Something like that. She was the lead singer. But yeah, their Sweat was their other big song.
Yeah.
Gonna make you sweat.
Yeah, that's a good one.
It was very hip hop. Well, not quite hip hoppy, but
it was
good
dance.
dance.
It was good dance music. Yeah, CNC Music Factory. But
the floor crowded.
It got the floor crowded. The fact that that the bag type disc just went way up is what people still can't explain. So I'm going to do some research on that, Stephen. I'm going to let you know if I find anything.
I appreciate it.
Because
nice, even after all these years.
Yeah, 1999, September 25th. I have to write that date down. But thanks for sharing it. I love this stuff. I love to hear people's stories. There's so much we don't know. We only use and we only really know about 10% of the brain. So
yes,
if we only know that much, and people are smart, and there's a lot we do know. Can you imagine all the things we don't know?
Well, and people have asked me, why are you willing to share this? It'll make you look like a goof. And I said, well, if I don't share it, it's selfish of me to sit on this information. Maybe there's somebody else who had a similar experience, and this will encourage them to come forward, too.
Sure. And, but when you know it's true, you experienced it. Whether nobody else believes you or not is irrelevant. You know what you saw. You know what you experienced, and you were there.
Yeah.
Perception.
And that didn't even really come into play. I was like, I'm not going to tell anyone because they're going to think I'm all crazy. It's like, no, this is what happened, and this is the way it was, But yes, I agree.
Well, you know what, Stephen, I'll tell you this before we finish up. When I put it on Facebook, which is how I knew that you had seen something and I wanted to talk to you before I started this podcast, I have to go back to that post, 1 million people who posted on there. All I said was, do you believe in UFOs? I'd say 85 to 90% of the responses were yes, and many of those responses had similar experiences to you.
Wow.
Yeah, people, I'm going to go back. That was a while ago. It was an old post, and I couldn't believe the reaction I got. I thought people were going to be like, you know what, Jill, you're crazy. You don't get any sleep from having a toddler. I don't know what people were going to say, but I couldn't believe the amount of positive responses. But at the same time, I would love to get a true skeptic on there that can go head to head with you and try to debunk what you say, because you know what you saw. Right.
So, and there's no profit motive. There's no underlying, thing that would, benefit me either financially or career-wise or anything. If anything, it could be detrimental.
Right. You are not reporting traffic. You are now
seeing stuff again,
Stephen, here's your traffic report from now on. On the inbound Edens, we have an accident. 2 UFOs collided right at Peterson.
Look out for that orb in the middle of the Kennedy. Just don't hit it. Anal probes on the Eisenhower.
Excuse me. Anal probes on the Eisenhower. Hello, everybody.
We have to keep it clean, right?
No, it's all good.
Yes,
Anal probes on the Eisenhower. Oh, that's good stuff. Well, thank you for coming forth and sharing. It was an interesting story. I really enjoyed it.
Well, thank you. I appreciated sharing it with you.
Yeah, and I hope that it made you feel good, and I can't wait to see the responses. I mean, this is what this show's about. If anybody out there listening, it's not just, like I said, ghosts or UFOs. Pretty soon I'm going to have somebody who had a near-death experience on and actually saw heaven and things that were going on in the operating room as she had died for a little while. So this show spans lots of different topics. If there's anything anybody wants to talk about, if you want to be a guest, this is what this is all about. Normal, everyday people just doing normal things and experiencing things that we don't talk about. And Stephen, do you want to promote yourself or anything, or tell people what you do? You're a wonderful broadcaster. You may.
Oh, well, thank you. News Radio 780 WBBM, but they have no idea of this, and I'm not. I mean, yes, I'd like to promote myself always, but this is all my own opinion, belief, witnessing. Has nothing to do with what I do for a living. But yes, I do News Radio 780 overnight traffic reports at News Radio 780, and have been for about the last. Oh gosh, it's been over 12 years now. So
God, yeah. I mean, God, when we work together,
believe me.
They love you. News Radio 70 is a great station.
It really is. We used to work together.
We did. Yep. I did the evenings, and then you did the overnights. I remember
That's right.
it well.
It was always a joy coming in to see you, and you're always nice, bright, friendly face to see, which I always appreciate.
Thank you, Stephen. And now I'm doing scary podcasts. So you can follow me at On a Quest Pod, P-O-D, On a Quest Pod. Follow the show. Anything you want to have a show about that's out there, please, by all means, more out there, the better. You can follow my Twitter there or my regular one at Jillerchak, U-R-C-H-A-K. Thank you for listening. Thank you for listening to Stephen's experience. I found it fascinating. And I'm going to follow up, Stephen, if I find anything. 1999, September 25th. I'm going to get back to you on that.
Okay. Great.
Okay.
Thanks. I appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day, night, evening, whenever you're listening. And I was going to sign off something from Star Wars, but I have nothing. So take it easy. See you later. Bye.